that.
Phone. Oh, I should probably turn mine on. Off.
Let's see here.
I'm not even sure which one would have made that.
I know I have 3 on my desk. Like
That is an ancient notification sound.
Yeah. Oh, what are you drinking, Dave?
Macallan.
Oh, nice.
It is very nice. So we've got the U11 Plus, T-Mobile and Sprint ending merger talks. Man, I don't really want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, we've kind of talked that to death.
So let's see. We could talk about. We're broadcasting, right? Never mind. I can't talk about that. Let's see. What has been?
I had an idea earlier today, and then I forgot it. So helpful me.
We could talk about the Pixel 2 display update that adds the saturated mode.
Yes, more Pixel 2.
We could also talk about the weird microphone issue on the S8 and the Pixel 2 and the Note 8.
I still think that Artem's BC title should have been the actual title.
I don't even know what it was. I was not paying attention to that. Let's see. Well, was there a Moto thing recently? No.
There was just that they shipped twice as many phones.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's a thing. The Essential phone had a price drop. We haven't talked about that on the show. It's down to, is it $449 now?
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know if that was permanent, but the drop to $499 I think was.
Yeah,
Okay.
$499 is permanent. The extra $50 was, I think, just if you order it a certain way.
Okay, let's do that. And
because $500 for that phone, not bad.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal. Okay. At that point, I think we're gonna go ahead and get ready to get started here because time's a wasting. So, right.
Oh, man.
Actually, if I were going to be silent for like 5 seconds so I can get levels when I do rip it. Okay. Welcome to the Android. Oh, Jordan.
Sorry.
Damn it. All right, I'll just cancel the show. It's too
we're
late.
done.
Okay. Welcome to this podcast. I'm your host, David Ruddick.
I'm Cody Toombs. Sorry.
Oh, really?
I'm doing no, seriously, David's audio completely cut out for me, and I had no idea what it threw me off.
We're professionals. We're really good at this.
And I'm having audio issues. Maybe it's my cable. I don't know. Unfortunately, there's not much I can seemingly do about it.
Okay. Do we want to take another run at that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's try it one more time.
Let's do one more time. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm your host, David Ruddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam. I'm
Cody Toombs.
And I'm Jordan Palmer.
And I think we only had to do that 3 times. So pretty good. Yeah. We're off to a great start this week. On the show this week, I was going to say show instead of add an S. I promise I'm not drunk. This week on the show, we're going to start off discussion with a story. Let's actually talk about a phone that's on a phone. Excuse me. I guess shares a phone. So HTC announced the U11 Plus. We published our review of the the U11 Life review. I can tell you I don't want to talk about it. So the U11 Plus, though, is much more interesting. We had Scott in the UK take a look at it in person. And he was fairly impressed, and I'm looking at the phone, and it seems like a really good HTC phone. We also learned that the U11 Plus is, in some ways, shares certain traits with Muskie, the canceled HTC version of the Pixel 2 XL, which is...
Sorry, you cut out there, David. Were you done talking, or?
Yeah, we're done.
I said interesting, and then I was done talking.
Okay. Yeah. So We heard about this device, the code name, a long time ago, and at the time did we think that were there all three names floating around, or did we only know
I feel like
the two HTC code names?
It was Walleye and Muskie, and then Timon appeared a little bit later, I think. And we were all trying to figure that out.
So this phone, I mean, it looks like HTC's other phones, though. It has the glass back and everything. It's very round, but apparently this is based in some way on the hardware that was going to be the new Pixel before, I guess, Google decided to go with LG.
Yeah, and I think, my take on it is that, well, this is to me no more relevant to the canceled Pixel than the V30 is to the Pixel 2 XL we got, because those are probably also, a big part share for certain things.
I mean, and so the U11 Plus is LCD, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Google would have never done that on a Pixel, at least not right now, because they want to insist on Daydream, and that requires an OLED.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that the story that came out, which was from The Verge, I don't want to say it was misleading. I just think it sent the message that in some way, when you look at the U11 Plus, that's what you would have gotten with the Pixel 2 XL if HTC had made it. And I think that's it sells it way too simply. I think it's like, engineering resources were shared, necessarily much about the end consumer product.
Yeah, I mean, it would have definitely not looked like that, and a number of the parts would have been different. But I believe that maybe like a lot of the engineering that went into the main board was probably shared. Like that would have probably been a very similar part.
Yeah. And I guess, on that engineering level, so those things could be very similar, but, things like the glass back, obviously Google would not have done. It would have looked, I think, probably very close to the Pixel 2 XL we ended up with. I doubt it would have really, visually been all that different in appearance. And I don't know if, I mean, based on what, that phone did end up being, I assume, it would have the same 18:9, aspect ratio display, front-facing speakers, and, fingerprint scanner on the back, etc. So I think that, the question to me is, why did Google end up using the LG design? That is the big one.
I mean, I feel like it has to have something to do with the display. I mean, the OLED production from LG, Google invested a lot of money in that because it knew Samsung displays were going to be more expensive and harder to get in volume. And maybe just having LG, if they were making the display for that phone, build the hardware was either, like a carrot that they hung out there, or was just sort of easier. But I feel like the screen was probably the impetus.
Yeah, and I would also guess that maybe I would guess it was probably a matter of A, cost, and B, manufacturing output. It's probably easier for LG to build the displays and then assemble the phones in LG's own factories with its own tooling, rather than LG make the displays to spec and send them to HTC, who would then have to do their own tooling, based on that panel. And it makes you then question, so why didn't they use HTC? What was the big reason there? And I mean, I have my one theory is that HTC's design would have meant a Samsung OLED panel, and there probably are not a whole lot of those to go around right now.
Well,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll throw in at least the minor theory that after last year and HTC's difficulty keeping up with demand, it could just be that Google didn't want to risk putting all of it into one company, that it makes more sense to split it out. That way, if one phone falls wildly behind demand, the other one is there and available from another manufacturer.
Well, sure. And I mean, that could just be because of the display panel. I mean, last year it could have been, well, they didn't have enough screens. I mean, we don't know, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this is what it really comes down to, but I will at least kick in the possibility there was some politics in there too. Just the simple Google probably wants to keep good relations with LG, and throwing them with the bone of a phone, it does count for something.
Yeah, and I think, well, the investment, I think they invested what, like $1 billion or a couple $1 billion in LG's OLED expansion, which is, that's chump change for Google, but it's still significant money, in terms of, it's a major expenditure. So I would maybe guess that there's probably some kind of advantage to going with LG if they wanted to use the screens, and given that the original Pixel 2 XL was planned to be with HTC, that means something at some point changed. There was probably a decision that changed kind of the calculus of everything. And again, we don't have any real insight into that, unfortunately. And I think Google this year is being even less open about the fact that it's working with partners to build these phones. Last year when I asked at the Google Pixel event, hey, so, is HTC a manufacturer or what? And Google said, well, we consider them a partner in the project. And whereas this year, Google's like, we don't talk about our partners. So, like even when I asked, is this an LG OLED panel? They would not answer me, even though that's verifiable by just taking apart the damn phone. Like, it's just one of those things. I think, it seems even less likely that we'll get that kind of information, unfortunately. I mean, probably, maybe we get some kind of like Korean business newspaper gossip, maybe now that Google's getting to be more important with its phones. But yeah, nothing that we've heard, at least. In terms of other news this week, so around the Pixel 2 XL specifically, Google issued its first update to, well, I guess it's the first update, right, to the Pixel 2 XL with the November.
There was the one last month, but they were still September patch levels. They didn't really do anything.
Yeah, so it wasn't really an update as much as like it just kind of lined everything up in terms of build numbers. This one is the first update that does anything aside from change some numbers. And Google fixed some bugs, made some Bluetooth performance improvements, allegedly. I doubt you'll notice. And they also added a new color mode to the Pixel 2 XL display. I don't know. Is it for both Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL, the new color?
Yes, except for whatever reason, the Verizon build didn't have the new color mode on the Pixel 2.
Probably because the Verizon build was older.
Yeah. So, but they did another, like they rolled out a newer build like a few days later for both versions. So I don't know, maybe that one does have it. But at any rate, so most of the Pixel 2 phones out there now have the saturated color mode, which is what Google said they would do after everybody said, hey, accurate colors kind of blow. So, and they sure did deliver, because it is real saturated. It is like Samsung saturated.
I have not seen it. I'm going to be very curious when the next beta comes out. See how that looks. I'm running the beta.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you put it next to a Samsung phone in like the default adaptive mode, like it's pretty, the colors are pretty similar. Like the reds are super bright, and it looks a little, it looks a little too vibrant sometimes. But after I adjusted to it, I think it looks nice. I mean, it'll have that sort of that pop that people expect OLEDs to have.
And I think that if Google, it's curious to me that Google made this the time they wanted to decide to switch to a managed color space on their phones, even though no third-party apps out there are going to use the expanded gamut available as part of Oreo.
Even Google's apps don't do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, okay, guys, if you're not gonna, really do this, I don't think Android's like. I don't think the launcher does, right? Like even
there's I think the only thing that uses it is the camera viewfinder, which seems kind of pointless.
Yeah, because then when you go and look at the photo after you've taken it, it's not in the expanded gamut, which is just
it was just such a strange decision, and it feels like a very engineer-driven decision, which I thought we were over with, well, maybe not over, but I mean, Google has a history of doing these things that sound very good from a technical standpoint, but in real life, it's like, but people don't want that. That doesn't make any sense. That's what this was. It was a thing that makes perfect sense on paper, but when you actually look at the phones people buy, they don't care if the colors are accurate. They want the screen to look really like, nice and bright, and they want it to stand out.
Yeah, not everyone's a nerd and switches to sRGB every time they can.
Yeah, right.
Well, I would have loved the option, but send it with the default set to where customers are going to want them.
Yeah, I mean, before they had the sRGB option in developer options. I mean, it's fine to move that into the regular display menu, but obviously people weren't going to want that. I mean, I mean, OnePlus caught all kinds of flack last year, or maybe the year before, I don't know, for whenever they released the phone with the new calibration, and it was like, it was like weird. And they got, the bad review from, I forget who it was, maybe Nantech. And they rolled out like, okay, fine, here's sRGB. And people turned it on, they're like, oh, that's actually not so great.
Yeah, that was the 3. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that being, I remember a bit of huffing and puffing about that.
Yeah, there was a lot of OnePlus complaining.
Yeah, but they also added, I think, DCI P3 as a calibration option, and that's actually I like the way that looks. I think that's what Android's expanded color gamut is supposed to be DCI P3.
Yeah. So I think that by doing this, Google has admitted essentially he screwed up. I think that the display's other issues notwithstanding, that this probably, if they just start shipping phones this way, this will resolve most complaints about the screen.
Yeah, I don't think that most people would have made a fuss about the panel if this had been the default calibration, because when you first turn on a Pixel 2, like, it is kind of, it's weird because you're not used to seeing a phone screen that looks like that, that's, calibrated to be sRGB. You expect it to be really vibrant. So that sort of made people think, hey, what's going on? We should look more closely at this. And they're like, oh, but then it does these other weird things. And altogether, a lot of people found that unpleasant.
I think there was going to be a lot of hate no matter what. At the very least, the smearing was going to cause a lot of complaints, and the blue color shift would have been less of an issue, hopefully, but the smearing would have had people looking anyway.
I feel like people don't mention that a whole lot, though. Even though, like, I think that's like the most annoying thing about the display. But people are like flipping out about the blue shift. Like, every time I hear somebody talk about
it's funny to me, as the person who owned the Nexus, like, in recent history with like the worst screen, the Nexus 6. I do not remember near the moaning about that screen.
No.
It was calibrated, pretty saturated out of the box, but it was a pretty terrible display panel. It didn't get bright. It shifted like at low brightness at any angle.
That display got super warm.
Yeah, and then it did the response at low bright. It would smear.
Yeah.
And then viewing angles were pretty honestly, it was not a good screen in almost any respect. It was the part of that phone I liked the least. And then 3 years later, 3 years, right? It's been 3 years now. 3 years later, I look at the Pixel 2 XL, and that display is leaps and bounds better than what we had a few years ago. And yet you would not know that this is in many ways still a huge improvement on where OLED technology, even Samsung's, was a few years ago. The Nexus 6 used a Samsung OLED panel. It was just a crappy one.
Yeah. I feel like the panel on the XL is probably it's like Galaxy S6 level, maybe.
Yeah, and probably a little worse in some respects. The S6's screen was, the S5 was the last kind of, in my opinion, of bad Samsung AMOLED panels. Like, you dealt with it. I think the S5 was when they started doing color modes and stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, but adding the saturated color mode, I think, is completely reasonable. It is a good response, and they should start setting that as the default.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And
Oh, in this update, they also added that fading home button thing that's in the 8.1 beta, which is supposed to lessen burn-in, supposedly.
Sense just from a standpoint of like, well, what causes the burn-in? Well,
yeah,
bright.
Yeah, I mean, it's the home buttons that everybody looks for when they're trying to check and see if their screen is burned in, or just image retention. I think it's probably just retention at this point. Yeah. But yeah, so like when you're in an app, if you don't if you've been using the same app for like 5 or 10 seconds, you can see the home button sort of fade, and they become sort of like semi-translucent kind of. So they will presumably cause less of an impact on the screen.
Yeah. So having sufficiently beaten the Pixel 2 XL screen to death, this Pixel. So this is kind of weird to me that these solutions were discovered kind of side by side.
David, your audio is cutting out kind of a lot, so I don't know if you want to.
You're talking about the microphone
stuff.
and
try that again.
Okay. How about now?
Maybe. I guess we'll find out.
Okay. At the moment. Maybe.
Go back in time 20 seconds and go.
And we'll get that right sorted. So the other issue we want to talk about today, it's pretty interesting to me that both these, I would say all 4 of these phones had this issue discovered and remedied roughly about the same time. The Galaxy, or excuse me, 5 phones, right? The S8, the S8 Plus, the Note 8, the Pixel 2, and the Pixel 2 XL all seem to have issues with the microphones on the bottom of the phones somehow getting either obstructed or becoming desensitized in some way. And the way you fix them when they're no longer detecting audio is you blow into the USB-C port. Has anybody figured out why this is happening?
So did we
Super
decide
Nintendo
that it was
nostalgia?
Did we decide that it was the port or the microphone itself?
I don't know.
Because I know like when people were tipping us about this and they were saying like here's the fix, it was like supposed to be that you would blow in the Type-C port, but I feel like we should actually look at the thing that we posted on the website.
I did look at it briefly. I wonder if it's it makes me wonder if it's something to do with waterproofing.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with it, that maybe there's a membrane on this thing that's just a little too stiff out of the factory, and what you're really just doing is changing the pressure enough that it pops it and allows it to be flexible.
Yeah, maybe. So we wrote that it's fixed by blowing into the USB/mic area, into that general vicinity of the phone.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre.
And I mean, there are videos of people doing this. Like their phone is getting no audio, and they blow on it, and it works. It starts getting audio again.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if this was related to waterproofing. This sounds like something.
Yeah, it is a very interesting bug. But yeah, all of these phones, and like I think when we first got the tip, it was like people were saying it was just the Pixel that was doing it because people are hyper aware of Pixel issues right now. But then we found out like all these other phones were doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, this is bizarre. I would love for somebody competent to tear down a phone and maybe figure out why this would happen.
Yeah, I mean, like the Pixels have that dielectric grease around the Type-C port on the inside. I don't know if these other phones also have that.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, maybe if the grease gets pushed up into the microphone inlet by the plug or something, and then it clogs it, and then you just blow on it and it pops the bubble, basically.
Maybe.
I don't know. That is bizarre, though. It's pretty weird.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many people are affected by this. Like,
honestly, it can't be that many because, I mean, my God, I mean, most people probably use their phone's microphone at least a few times a week. The people would notice.
Well, and this was affecting, aside from the Note 8, this is 2 Samsung phones that have been out for quite a few months now. Like, it couldn't have been that bad if those weren't really reported until now. When
the Galaxy S8 and the Note 8 sell many, many millions of units, I'm sure we would have heard about it.
Yeah, I would think so too.
I'm wondering how frequently it happens too, not just how quickly.
Like, does it come back, you mean?
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know if
like,
we ever. I was under the impression that it was something people had happen repeatedly, but I don't know. I don't understand what the mechanism for that could possibly be.
Yeah, that seems bizarre, and it's one of those things where I think if it was very widespread, we would hear much more about it.
You'd think r/Android would have been lit up by now.
Oh yeah, that would be a very what to make of this issue. I think we've read Google about it. Did we'll update if we hear back, but this seems more like fluky things where a bunch of people, or not a bunch, but some people with a similar problem, kind of get together and start creating theories. So, and like Ryan said, the level of hyper awareness around pixel issues right now is insane. So the phone's being scrutinized to a fairly ridiculous degree.
Oh yeah,
indeed.
Which is funny to me because you talk about some people right now. I've heard that for example, on the iPhone X, you don't hear too much complaining about the fact that the phone's battery life is apparently pretty quick.
Also, the display has a blue shift.
The blue shift on
just FYI,
on the iPhone it's not as bad. It's not as bad, but it is there. It's definitely there. I was more surprised to hear that the battery life is not very good. The phone has 2 batteries in it, presumably for packaging reasons.
Yeah,
and then the OLED panel is probably not as efficient as the LCDs Apple typically uses. So I would personally be more concerned about the fact that my phone gets subpar battery life than I would the display goes a little blue. But, I think that rounds out pixel issues for this week's episode. Let's talk about another phone that's riddled with issues.
But it's a phone people are willing to overlook the issues on because it is now pretty cheap.
Yeah. So the Essential phone. So Essential has lowered the price officially to $499. So that is a $200 drop, right?
Yes, yeah, because it was $700 at launch, so $200 off, and then it was on sale for another $50 off the other day. I think at Best Buy or something.
Yep, it's Best Buy.
So yeah, this phone is super cheap now. I mean, it's down there competing with OnePlus, sort of.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I've heard that so it works on GSM networks and then it works on Sprint. Is it the same SKU for all 3?
I think the Sprint version is locked to Sprint, so I guess that would be a different phone. I can't imagine Sprint selling like a regular unlocked phone.
I wonder if the unlocked one works on Sprint. I'm not super familiar with the Essential phone, so
I know that it works on Verizon. You can just drop a Verizon SIM in it, and it'll.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So that I mean, for a 4-carrier phone with high-end specifications and not a very good camera, but then again, nothing for $500 has a great camera.
Because the OnePlus 5 doesn't work on CDMA carriers, right?
It does not. The OnePlus 5 does not.
So that's a huge boon in Essentials.
And so the white version of the Essential phone is actually very pretty from the back. So
I want that blue one.
Yeah, I don't think that exists yet. So they.
I wonder if it will ever exist in any meaningful quantity.
Wow, that blue one was gorgeous.
They should have had that at launch. That would have been a good idea. No, but the thing about the Essential phone that still bugs me a lot is the notch. I don't think it's a good idea, and I hope other manufacturers do not get it in their heads that they should be doing it.
Well, you know what, Ryan? A certain manufacturer has already decided that notches should be bigger and better.
They're not copying the Essential phone though. They are aping Apple because that is what Xiaomi does. Are we done talking about the Essential phone? Do we want to move on to?
I mean, I'm curious. I'm personally like I would be I know from anybody. A, because the camera's so crappy. B, there's no regulation. Like as soon as I read that AMA they did fairly recently, where basically the top questions were all, how do I return the phone to Sprint? I was just like, this doesn't make me feel super good about any of this. And Sprint did some pretty aggressive promos on that phone when they launched it. So, yeah, I'm not too hot on. I've also heard that the reception is not the very best.
Yeah, I mean, at 500, like I feel like it's potentially a good deal. It's just, in some amount of time, we're probably going to have the OnePlus 5T, and that'll, maybe that'll just be like way better and blow it out.
Oh, also, I specifically recall the software optimization on the Essential phone. That's a great.
It was real bad. It has gotten a little bit better with updates. I haven't used it full time since I finished the review, so I can't say for certain. But I've noticed when I do boot it up to test something or do something, it doesn't seem as wonky as it was before.
Interesting. All right. There's one thing we don't have on the spreadsheet here that we could talk about that was announced between now and the last podcast. The Razer phone.
Oh yeah. How about that thing? That is a metal Robin.
Basically. I'm just disappointed. Oh wait, no. Is there a version where the Razer logo glows green?
I think there's a green one. There's supposed to be one where the logo is just green. But yeah, I was a little like, even though it would have been tacky and horrible, I am a little disappointed that the logo doesn't glow.
It's Razer, man. Everything glows.
They should have had a Synapse app where you can pick the color.
Oh man, I would have gone. It's so gimmicky, but I would have loved that.
But so they didn't do that.
I'll be ashamed.
I know, we're still arguing that the phone should have a light bar. So
yeah, you know what? I'm using my Death Adder right now because I'm stuck. So I'm kind of in Razer mode right now. So leave me alone.
Yeah. So I used it, and my thought was, wow, 120 hertz display. Give it to me on every phone.
Was it really nice?
Oh, it's so smooth. It's just it's gloriously smooth. It's amazing.
I can't imagine.
You will be temporarily ruined when you use another 60 hertz phone next to it. It's like, wow, how do I live?
So, but it doesn't.
I guess this is fine, but
does it feel like that all the time while you're using it.
So if
you only do it in games.
So what I would say, it's kind of like, so I have a gaming monitor that's 144 hertz. If I switch it to 60 and use it for a day, I stop noticing that it's not 144 anymore. But as soon as I switch it back to 144, it's like, oh, sweet Jesus. It really does make a difference. It is very noticeable, especially if you switch between frame rates back and forth. 60 looks so janky compared to like 120. So it will surprise you how bad 620.
Yeah. Sorry, you froze for a second there, but I think we get the gist that it looks very good.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I want to look at it.
So like the thing is, so it's a variable refresh rate, so it'll adjust to what the phone, I guess, can render with the hardware. So if you're in like a 3D game, it doesn't have enough power to render 120 frames per second. So it's going to be something.
No, it does. It does have enough. Yeah, definitely. So they demoed what's that stupid Wave Runner clone game, Riptide. They demoed that in 120 hertz, and
that's been out for a couple years though.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still it's a 3D game. It's got shaders. It has lighting. It's complex enough. It runs at 120 FPS, pretty much locked in. So it's definitely doable for some stuff. I'm sure some games will run absolute crap if you try to push them above. Not they won't run like crap. They just won't get above 60 meaningfully. And most games won't go above 60 at all because they weren't designed to. And I think probably games that run in middleware like Unity, I would get hard to make those games run in 120 on mobile. They said 20% of games out there will run in 120 without any changes from the developer, which says to me probably crappy games. But the whole OS runs in 120 on the Razer phone. They've optimized Android. They worked with Google to make sure that everything runs smoothly and things don't lag behind. And it does. The OS runs in 120 hertz very, very smoothly. It is crazy smooth. The interesting thing is the phone ships out of the box at 90 hertz because Razer says 120 will drain the battery fairly quickly.
I'm sure.
Probably. I mean, it's it's a 1440p LCD, right?
Yeah. So yeah, switch, running in 120 hertz and 120 FPS will drain it. It's mostly, I think the display refresh is what uses more power than the actual frame rate. But basically they said they ship at 90 because that's the best balance. It also has a huge battery. It's 4,000 milliamp hours, I think. So it's pretty hefty. That said, I think the thing I took away from this is not that I want to buy this phone, because I really don't. It's big, it's bulky, it's super squared off at the edges. I don't think it's particularly pretty.
Which at least the Robin was plastic, so the sharp corners weren't as.
Yeah, I mean, and it was slightly rounded off, and it had pretty colors. I mean, Razer's like here's a black phone.
This is not a phone at all.
No,
I'm sorry, it's holistic, but no, it's just there's nothing great about it that way. All I really came away with from this experience is knowing that 120 hertz displays in phones are going to happen, and they're going to be great. Probably in like 2 years, we'll probably see that go mainstream. As soon as OLED panels, that'll be amazing. In the meantime, not a reason to buy a phone. And also, they refuse to talk about the camera in any meaningful sense. And then I think some people in the hands-on did take photos, and they said they were crappy, which surprises me none whatsoever.
The Robin camera was not good.
I assume that they are just doing very limited processing, whatever they think they can do in house. They're probably not having somebody do it for them.
Oh, well, I'm guessing they're just having whatever Qualcomm's out of the box solutions are. Just basic stuff. So, and then, it's only GSM, no CDMA to support.
And it's what, $700?
It's $700, but I mean, the specifications for the price are pretty damn good.
But I mean, but for $700, you can get, a lot of other phones.
You can get a proper high-end phone for not much more than that, and I just wouldn't recommend it for that reason. And I just think I don't think Razer is targeting. I think Razer's targeting its existing customer base with this phone. Also, the whole angle that this is a phone for gamers is stupid. 120 hertz refresh does not make a phone for gamers with a Z at the end, no S. It's just, or the loudspeakers, or the fact that it's easy to hold in landscape mode because they put the buttons in the middle. It's just all stupid. It's a phone with 120 hertz screen and a big battery and really loud speakers. This does not make it better for gaming. It doesn't have any special gaming features. It doesn't come with any special games. It's just a phone. So I think Razer's pitch that this is a phone that somehow is going to meaningfully enhance the mobile gaming experience is ridiculous. That said, they basically hinted, oh, wait for CES, and then you'll see how it integrates with the Razer ecosystem of stuff. I'm guessing it will not be that impressive.
So there may be a Synapse app, but you can control the glow of your keyboard or your mouse.
Absolutely, I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah, boy.
There's one for there's a Logitech app that you can.
I would also not be surprised if they come up with an NVIDIA game streaming sort of thing for their laptops or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I would bet that might be a thing. Either that, or to come out with a dock to hook up your mechanical Razer keyboard and mouse. Totally. Actually, I could see that happening. They come out with a DeX thing, and it works with your Razer peripherals, and I mean that sounds dumb, but I don't know.
It's Razer. They'll probably do it because
it's bound to happen eventually.
I am also very disappointed in their review strategy, which has clearly been to target people who are super hyped about the phone. At the expense of, much in the way of critical evaluation. I know that we haven't received a phone yet to review, and I don't think any other major publication has. I think they've just they give them people in London at the event, and
they give them to gaming outlets too.
Yeah, and I think that's just with a gaming outlet in particular, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a very nuanced smartphone review.
No, they're better at PC hardware.
Yeah,
not mobile hardware.
And I wouldn't have a problem if it wasn't just a phone, and so it makes sense for people who review phones to review it. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Razer also tends to be a bit on the feelings get hurt side of things when people don't like things that they do.
No.
Like when they made that tweet about certain sexual activities being euphemized. I think that was that CES earlier this year.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't recall this.
They had so yeah. I am
never been a big fan of theirs.
Intrigued with thing. I think the rest of the phone is pretty tough sell to anybody who is just not a Razer fanboy.
Yeah, it's speaking as a gamer, I'm not at all interested, except for that high refresh display. But
the price is going to be killer for them. I don't think a lot of people are going to spend $700 up front.
No,
so David,
not
would
on
you
an unlocked
for
phone.
$700 would you rather have the GS8 display with the lower refresh rate or the Razer refresh rate?
Oh, well, it's not even about display at that point. Everything else the Samsung phone does is better. Like it's probably gonna have better battery life. It's going to take much better pictures. It has better accessory support.
And you know what? The Galaxy S8 will have Oreo probably, in not too long.
Well, you can enroll in the beta right now, and it's not terrible from what I hear.
Yeah. I mean, and the Razer phone's going to launch with Nougat, and it'll get Oreo. What they said Q1 next year.
Yeah. So, and that's apparently part of that is delays due to the 120 hertz display. So they've said they're it's harder to update the phone, optimize somebody else.
Yeah, because
optimize for.
Yeah, as I said, they got to do some weird tomfoolery with it.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the guys who work on this phone at Razer, who are formerly of Nextbit, they're former Googlers from the Android team. So they know what they're doing. The phone feels very well optimized, and that's something I would not expect sometimes of like phones from not obscure but non-traditional phone companies. So hats off to them for that. Definitely.
Right.
I just think as a commercial product, this is not going to be an easy one to move in significant quantities. So we are nearing the end of the show here, but I think before we wrap up, I will quickly go over a news story here, and then we can talk about one little review. So in Chrome 64, if you have ever been annoyed by pop-up ads that redirect to your browser and open a new tab or open up, a dialogue.
Oh, David, your audio
Chrome 64.
You just went real crazy.
Smack your computer. Beat it with a stick.
How about now?
Well, I heard the bang.
It probably didn't help, but it was funny, so go with it.
Right. How about now?
I hear you, so I don't know, maybe.
So Chrome 64, if you have problems with redirect or interstitial ads that like take over your browser or put up dialogues or whatever, as of Chrome 64, Chrome's just going to block all that crap. Right.
Thank
They're
God.
basically just saying that they're declaring war on nasty ads.
Yes. Hopefully we will stop getting angry emails from people all the time.
Yeah, and I think the biggest effect this will have is that ad providers will just stop making those ads because they know they won't work anymore. What's the point of trying to trick the browser?
Yeah, Chrome is a huge piece of the market. So
once that happens, it's going to be a little while. It's going to be months because Chrome 64 is currently in Canary, so it's going to be a little while. But we will get there, and this feature will happen.
We're all excited.
Yeah, we are all very excited. It's going to be good. Moving on, though, Ryan can talk about the Nest E, which he has reviewed, and which apparently is just silly not to buy.
Yeah, if you look, if I'm not saying that you should rip the thermostat out of your wall and go buy one, but if you need a new thermostat, like if the time has come, you should probably buy one of these because it's pretty well priced for what it does. I mean, it's $80 less than the 3rd gen Nest, which is pretty widely believed to be one of the best, if not the best, smart thermostats you can get. And this does almost everything that the 3rd gen Nest does. There are just like 2 minor features that it doesn't have because the screen is sort of instead of having the big bright LCD display. It's got a sort of an LCD behind this frosted plastic panel, so when it lights up, you get sort of these warm numbers and and this sort of minimalist UI instead of the busy thing you get on the 3rd gen Nest. But otherwise, it works the same. It plugs into the Nest app. It does scheduling. It knows when people are home. It can sort of adjust the temperature that it sets based on how bright it is outside. It does all sorts of cool stuff. And I found that it works very well, and I enjoy having it. It has assistant integration. It's just a very well done product. I mean, the thermostats, I think, are still like what Nest does the best. That was like their first product, and they continue to just really focus on refining that experience. And for like whatever $170 that this is, like if you're at all interested in a smart thermostat, I think it's a good deal.
If I wasn't a renter, I'd be buying one.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Well, granted, never mind, I wouldn't, because I don't have air conditioning anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it seems like, if I were in a place that had, AC and heat, even if I rented, I might just go ahead and, do that.
Yeah, and it's not that hard to throw it up on the wall. Like I am not handy around the house at all. And I was able to install it. Like, it has, they have like, tutorials and videos, and like the app like guides you through the process and tells you what to do. As long as you, just like look at the wiring behind your current thermostat and just make note of which wires you have, you can make sure that the thermostat E will work. It has fewer wire inputs than the 3rd gen, but it still works on like 80% of houses or something. You just, plug in a couple wires, throw it up on the wall, and, and it'll be fine. It has a back plate to sort of cover any, scarring on your wall from the old thermostat, because the thermostat E, like the 3rd gen, is round and most other thermostats are not. So it's likely you've got some, some disruptions in the wall.
Seems like a great product. So I'm, if I were in the market for a thermostat, I would definitely get that one. The extra features on the higher end Nest just don't seem quite all that interesting to me. So yeah, it seems like it's a good time to buy in that part of the smart home market.
Yeah, it's more mature than a lot of the crazy things that people are trying to sell you right now.
Well, and Nest works with Assistant, right?
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's completely integrated, so you can check the temperature and change it, and change like the mode of the thermostat via Assistant.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about this today, and I realized how kind of annoying and frustrating it is that, now that you're getting all these kind of home integration items with Assistant, things like garage door openers, lights, air conditioning, all the smart home stuff. In your car, if you use Android Auto, Google Assistant is not there.
Yeah.
So you can't control any of the stuff,
which is crazy. Some of them work. Like the Nest thing works
really
in Android Auto. But other stuff just doesn't. Like it's just a different version of Assistant, even though your phone is powering it.
It's so bizarre. Yeah. Well, at least the Nest works. I wonder if garage door openers works. It would be very funny if they don't.
I think I said on the podcast a few weeks ago, the Chamberlain thing I tried briefly. It does not work in the car, which is stupid. But that serves as stupid on a number of levels, because they're charging $1 a month for it. I just did the trial, and then I canceled it. I wanted to see if it worked. It does not.
Wow. Nice. Okay. Well, we are wrapping up a little short this week. I have to get out of here, and also probably my audio quality is just not fantastic. I'm currently in the process of having to kind of rebuild my desktop PC, and audio solutions right now are not ideal. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you after Thanksgiving. So our next episode will probably be... Oh, no, excuse me. We will catch you right before Thanksgiving. I lied.
Next week.
Yeah, not next week. Right? Oh, wait, no. We're going to do one next week. Yes, we're going to do 2 weeks in a row here. I'm completely wrong about all of this.
So we're taking Thanksgiving off, and then we'll be back on the 30th.
Yes. So we're going to have a podcast on the 16th, which means the edited episode will be up on 17th or 18th. And then we will skip until the 30th of November. I know we don't usually give you the schedule, but, well, we are this time.
Well,
great.
Yeah.
Maybe never again. It depends how I feel about it. So thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Jordan.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.